Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2006, directed by William Friedkin, and this film is called Bug. So Bug is about this woman who's on the run from her ex-lover. He's just been released from prison and she believes that she's in danger, so she hides in a very secluded, run-down city motel. So this motel room, she's very lonely. She has a friend, but she can't really fill that lonely void in her life. She needs a man that could take good care of her. So she believes she's found that man when she's introduced to this mysterious stranger. Now this stranger seems harmless enough, and he seems to have a little bit of baggage as well, and so they actually quickly form a relationship. Now this relationship is everything that she wanted, but then the relationship takes a sinister turn when this man is convinced that the motel room they're staying in is infested by bugs. Now these bugs are very dangerous, and they're causing him to go into a fit of paranoia. So this paranoia is elevating itself to a point where they pass a point of no return, and so what that point is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Bug. I had two thoughts coming into this film. Number one was excitement. I was very excited at the fact that William Friedkin was directing this film. I loved his movie Exorcist, as we all did, and I also loved Killer Joe, which is one of his latest films. So coming into Bug, I had my skepticisms. Although it was William Friedkin, I know that this is actually based on a stage play. Now, with stage plays, they are very different from feature films, and I reviewed another movie called They Look Like People, and They Look Like People had that stage play sort of feel, and it didn't feel like a proper feature film. So I had that skepticism coming into Bug, but after watching this film, I will say that this is an absolutely phenomenal piece of filmmaking, and it is William Friedkin's best film since The Exorcist. I know that's a big thing to say, but this movie hit me on so many levels. This movie is incredibly scary, it's incredibly dirty, it is very disturbing, it has some very shocking scenes of violence, which is everything that William Friedkin does, but he does everything with a purpose. It felt like the violence was there to really release the tension valve of the psychological trauma that he creates from point one from the starting point to the end. And I thought the tension in this film was so sustained that it actually felt like this was a movie directed by a guy who is actually legendary in what he does. And this is another example of how good William Friedkin can be. I think this is better than Killer Joe. Killer Joe possesses the same sort of atmosphere where you feel like you need a shower at the end of the film, but this movie hits you on so many levels. Now, psychological, the visuals are very unsettling, and it actually just contributes more to magnifying that psychological impact that William Friedkin wants the viewer to feel. So this movie is based on a stage play, but I think that stage play kind of feel that the movie has really plays into its advantage, because William Friedkin wants to create that sense of delusion. He wants to create that sense of isolation, that sense of these two people have to rely on each other because the outside world can't help them. And so the stage play element of this film really plays to its effect, and this is a much lower budget movie, so he really does play to his limitations very well. And so I thought that the performances from the two characters needed to be very good, and I think Michael Shannon and Ashley Judd deliver their best performances that I've ever seen them do. They deliver these characters who are so three-dimensional. You've got Michael Shannon's character who's very, you feel like he's got a lot of mental baggage, you feel like he's a person that could be liked, but that you don't quite trust him because of his mental state. But then you've got Ashley Judd's character, who's the best character of the film, is that she's very lonely, she's been worn down by men in her past, and when you wear someone down to a point where they've got no self-confidence, this is where vulnerabilities start to become present. And when people start to manipulate those vulnerabilities, that person can be changed from one person to another person. And that's exactly what happens to Ashley Judd's character in this film. And that's what I actually felt, that the biggest component of this movie is the psychological impact of loneliness. I think loneliness was the biggest villain in this movie, is because she was actually being led down this path, this very dark path, because she was desperate to have this man in her life. She didn't want to live alone anymore. And that's a very relevant problem in today's society. A lot of domestic violence sufferers, they don't want to leave their husbands because they feel that they can't get anyone else, and so that loneliness is keeping them entrapped in that very dangerous sort of environment. And so loneliness can be a very scary thing, and so this movie does have that psychological impact of, delusions, but it also has the impact of loneliness. And I think loneliness is definitely the most underrated element in this film, and it's just an element that helps you gain so much sympathy for this woman, is that you feel like, hey, she's not running away, she's not escaping, because she actually feels like she needs this guy. And this guy feels as though he needs her, and so you've got two lonely people who are thrust into a situation that is beyond control, and it feels like it's, you're driving a car and you realise the brakes have been taken out of your car, and so you're bracing for impact. You hope the consequences aren't going to be painful, but you know it is, and so you're just bracing for it, and when it happens in a very shocking climax. So the whole film just reeks of William Friedkin, just psychological impact that hits you on the level, and it's complemented by visuals as well. And as I said, there are some very shocking scenes of violence, but I thought that it was necessary. It felt that it built such a strong sense of psychological torment that the actual shocking violence was the consequence of that psychological torment, the consequence of things boiling up to a point of actually going over the top. And so it goes over the top when it hits you with the violence, and it feels like a release mechanism. But that release mechanism is not done in the way where you feel that it's cool to look at, or you feel that it's done just gratuitously. You actually feel like it had a purpose, and that purpose complements the overall tension that the movie does build. So the continuity from start to finish is fantastic. There's no soundtrack to indicate when you should be feeling scared or sad or terrified. William Friedkin allows the audience to use their own intelligence. It's a compliment to the intelligence, and as I said, it is an indication of a director who really, really knows what he's doing. So the end of the film, very shocking. This movie is very provocative, so it's going to upset a lot of people. But if you're into the more extreme kind of horror, Bug is definitely for you. Some phenomenal performances from Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon, painting these phenomenal characters. You've got a cameo from Harry Connick Jr., who plays the ex-lover, who was a very intimidating guy. It was good to see him in the cameo, but it really does rely, and the emphasis is on the two main characters who basically career-defining performances, in my opinion, and so that helps contribute to a very, very, very memorable horror film, and it's the second film of 2016 that I'm going to give 5 stars to. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.